Welcome to the Coastal Kitchen. I am in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we are going to start a new series that's called On the Road. And the first place we're going to visit is right here on Front Street. It's called Chops, and it is a wonderful deli that we are going to experience what they do best. So let's go on in. Wow, what a fun place. Hi guys, I'm looking for Brad Corpening.
That's me.
Oh wow, great. I'm Karen Mashers and I'm with the Coastal Kitchen.
Welcome, Karen.
I hear you have some special things to show me. I've heard that the food here is phenomenal, and are you ready to cook for me?
Sure am. Let's do it.
All right, let's go in the kitchen.
Sounds good.
Brad, this is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to get started cooking. But I want to ask you, how long have you had Chops Deli?
Well, Karen, we got started in December of 2009, so we just had our 7-year anniversary just this past December, right before the new year.
Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. This is a great little place. I have heard so many good things about the sandwiches and the soups, and I'm going to let you tell me what we're making today.
Well, I've got two things that we want to play with today. Two very simple recipes that you can make in your own home. Maybe not to the proportions we're going to talk about, but you know, they can be pared down to make for, you know, anything from a small family to, you know, a big get together, a big party or something.
Wow.
But still very simple, very straightforward recipes. The first is a nice tomato basil soup. Just a simple and hearty, good flavor, but something that can be played with and you know, made to someone's particular flavor preferences or tastes. And also, I'm going to show everybody how we make our mac and cheese, from making our cheese sauce and kind of putting stuff together to you know, finishing off with making it. You know, from there you can kind of go anywhere you want.
Wow, you've just said two of my favorite things: tomato basil soup and mac and cheese. Let's get started, because I'm ready to taste this stuff, okay?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right, you take it away.
All right, well, the first thing, I mean, obviously the first thing we always want to set up is making sure you've got a good clean space to work with. We've got our good sharp knife. It's a lot safer to have a good sharp knife than a dull knife. You don't have to worry about muscling on your knife when it cuts right through stuff. Yeah, we're gonna get started. I've got some, you know, we've got our cooking pot, some spices set up. I use an electric hot plate because I don't have a stove, but obviously if you're working in your own kitchen, then your own stove is going to be your best place. One of the things that I also like to make sure and have ready is my stock pot for leftovers, any kind of vegetable waste that we use when we're cooking. We're going to throw that into the stock pot, and every once in a while we're going to make our own vegetable stock to turn around and use in our homemade soups. So you're not buying stock that's pre-seasoned and made up with preservatives and stuff like that. It's
Right.
just,
Well, the flavor is so much better.
It really is. It really is.
So
It makes
much
such a
better.
great difference.
Take a good look. Okay, so we're going to put this on first.
Yeah, we're gonna get that stuff started. The first thing I start with my tomato basil or any of my vegetable soups. You know, a lot of people start sautéing some of their veggies with some butter. When I'm making a vegetable soup that's going to be, you know, just vegetables like a tomato basil, I like to go all the way and make it a vegan soup. And you know, instead of using butter, I use olive oil in the start.
That's fabulous.
And it's a really simple change that you can, you know, if you have friends coming over, or if you have a family member that's going vegan, you know, there's little tweaks that you can take, like, you know, skip the butter and make something vegetarian.
Right.
And it's doesn't really detract from the flavor at all. Cooks great. You know, it's not really, doesn't really change your cooking at all. Just means that somebody who doesn't want to eat animal products can still enjoy your meal. So I usually throw about a 1/4 cup of oil into our pot.
Well, that's great. My brother-in-law is vegan, and so this would be a nice recipe to make for him.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Anytime I make a soup, whether it's a beef stew or you know, this tomato basil, I basically always start the same. I start with some garlic and some onions sauteing in the pot. It gets things started. Now here's one of those things where, you know, we're getting the ends of the onions off, we're peeling off some of the skins. And this stuff goes right into the stock pot.
Okay.
And means that we've got some good stuff to cook down later to make a vegetable stock. And one of the things about the tomato basil soup that I like so much is that, you know, it is a simple, basic recipe. There's not a whole lot of ingredients to it. I mean, basically you've got tomatoes and spices, onions, garlic, and that's it. Some more onions right here. And you can see I just chopped up some extra onions, so we're going to throw those in there. Now I will say that, you know, we're cooking at restaurant portions.
Right.
So, you know, I use, you know, one big whole onion to start, and I've got about 10 cloves of peeled garlic minced up. But you know, when you're cooking at home, you may not need to use that much.
Well, this recipe would go for probably what, 30 or 40 people?
Something like that, probably.
Okay. So
and some of that depends on your bowl sizes.
You could make a recipe for 10.
Oh yeah. Oh
so
yeah.
that's a good thing, because it's such a great soup. If you are having a party, wonderful to be able to make a big pot.
Absolutely, and you know, but I always like kind of using nice round numbers in our preparations, because you know that makes it a lot easier to scale down. So I know how to make it. I know how to make this soup for a restaurant full of people, but I can also scale that back and, you know, take it home and make it for my girlfriend and some friends or something, and not have a whole bunch of leftovers.
There you go.
So really we're in a good spot now to get things started. We've got our garlic and onions in the pan. And the next step that I usually try and do is get my tomatoes ready. Again, we don't really have to make. There's not like a specific chopping method for any of the ingredients really. It's just kind of getting them chopped up a little bit, just so they cook a little faster when they're cut up. So I'm just going to take the tomato and cut it up a little bit. Okay.
Now, is this on a medium heat or a medium high heat?
You know what? Again, when I'm cooking this stuff, I usually go wide open.
Okay.
Now, I would say that's me having made this probably 1,000 times, and so I've got my pacing down, and you know, a lot of times I'll kind of prep out my ingredients so that all I have to do is say, all right, dump garlic and onions in, okay, ready, and then let those sweat out for a little bit, and then okay, time for tomatoes, and I've already got the tomatoes ready to go, and I just throw those in there too. But if you're kind of prepping as you go, I would say, you know, a medium to medium high heat would be a good idea. Maybe 6 or 7 out of 10 if your dial works that way. Just to make sure that you're not burning stuff. And as always, it's very important to kind of keep an eye on what you're cooking. You know, making sure you're continuing to stir it, making sure you're keeping stuff. You know, because the bottom is always going to be the hottest, and as things cook down, you don't want them to stick or burn. But if you keep your pot stirring, then you can prevent anything from getting burned or messed up. But you know, I'm kind of I don't know. They say the watch pot never boils, but I'm a checker. You know, I'll keep my eye on stuff, because you know, sometimes, especially in the restaurant setting, or if say you're cooking for making a big party of food, you know, sometimes you're starting one thing and going to another, and you know, splitting your attention. So sometimes it's hard to keep a timer on every little thing that you're working on. So I just kind of, how are you doing? How are you doing? Okay, kind of do a loop and just check on stuff and make sure that everything is still moving forward.
That's great.
But yeah, it sometimes it's a little bit of a scatterbrain method, but it works.
I know you're making this for me, but I want everybody at home to notice that he does have his gloves on, and he's got a mask that he wears during cooking process, right?
Yeah, the health department requirements, and you know, we've built the restaurant with me as the kind of poster boy. So I keep the facial hair to be recognizable as the guy on the window and the guy on the menus and the guy on the floor mat. Right. But there's rules we got to play by, and so me and all the guys that keep facial hair in the kitchen, we have to, you know, cover up the faces to make sure that you know, make sure we don't get any hair in the food. Kind of stay safe, stay clean. That's really important for us. I mean, we take pride in what we put out of the kitchen. We're really proud of whether it's soup, sandwiches, salads, anything.
Yeah.
So we want people to enjoy it. We don't want people to be worried about, hey, did that beardo drop some facial hair in my food? No way, not around here.
No.
Don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so all the tomatoes go in.
Yeah, so we've got the tomatoes, and you know, it's again, really, we're just trying to cook all this stuff down so it's softened and blended. So really, you can kind of throw everything all together in there. I'm gonna just dump those tomatoes in there. We're gonna dump some more on top of it. And let that kind of sweat out for a little bit.
The spices that you're going to use in the tomato basil soup, what kind of spices are you planning to use?
Well, I don't go too far afield. I use a lot of similar spices in a lot of my stuff. For the tomato basil, one of the first ones that I always love to use is some dill weed.
Love dill weed.
It's great. It adds a really nice sweetness to stuff, and just that it just perks up the flavor a lot. Also, a white pepper. You know, that's something that again, it just it perks up the flavor. You know, I've had situations where, you know, when I first experimented with using the white pepper in there, somebody called out and said, "Well, what's different? I've had this because this is a common recipe that we use very frequently." Like somebody's like, "I've had this before, and there's something different. What did you do differently this time?" And it's like, "Well, I used some white pepper, and it adds a little bit of pizzazz to it." Yeah. And they're like, "Yes, that's it." And I got some really good feedback, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's great.
And then I've got some ground parsley and some ground oregano leaves. I usually kind of take an Italian bend on this, just like a kind of a tomato soup, tomato sauce kind of link, I guess you could say.
Right.
And
I love all those flavors.
oh yeah, super fun. And I always throw a healthy amount of salt and pepper in as well, especially with tomatoes. I mean, if you've ever made a tomato sandwich before, it's not the same without a pinch of salt. Exactly. And so I bring the same kind of principle to my tomato soup. Make sure we got a little bit of salt in there. That really just helps to bring that sweetness of the tomatoes out.
It really does.
And in a really big way. And you know, kind of use the hand palm, tablespoon, teaspoon. I've got about 4 or 5 cups of tomatoes in there to 3 or 4 cups of the chopped onion. Again, these are kind of big restaurant portions. This is going to make about 20-25 cups of soup. So depending on how big your bowl is, it depends on how many people you'll be able to feed. If people are eating big bowls of soup, it might be you know, 10 or 15 servings.
Right.
It may be. I mean, we use about a cup portion for our customers. So that gives us about, you know, 25 or so portions of the soup for our customers. Use a little bit of pepper to go along with it. And this is the point. I like adding the seasonings kind of early, because as we're cooking everything down, especially in the olive oil, adding those seasonings in there lets everything kind of incorporate. All those flavors start kind of mashing together, so that when we blend it, it's good to go.
And that way, with your spices on the table, you can give it a taste test and come back and add whatever you want to make it taste a little bit different.
That's one thing that, you know, I always do. And cooking in the restaurant, one of the benefits is that there's always hungry staffers around to try stuff for me. You know, sometimes I've tasted a recipe so many times, and sometimes it's not clicking in my mind. And I'll say, "Hey, come here and taste this." I'm like, "I promise it's not bad. Just taste it and tell me what you think." And really, that's when I can get some feedback for people other than people with, you know, different flavor preferences.
Right.
And like, "Hey, what do you think about this? I love it, but do you like it?" Because you know, sometimes there's stuff that I just think is great, and other people are like, "Nah, it's not really for me." So
well, you are cooking for a crowd, and
indeed.
So you do have to take that into consideration. But this is a dish that you can make the way you like it at home.
Oh, absolutely.
You can add a little bit more of any of the spices to make it tasteful for you.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about this, and you just made a great point, is, you know, this is my kind of flavor preference, the way I like to make this for the tomato basil. Ooh, speaking of which, we got basil. One of the spices that I definitely love to throw in is the fresh basil. I've got, oh man, a bunch. There's probably 3 or 4 sprigs worth of basil leaves, and I'm just gonna, again, because we're just blending this all down at the end, I just throw them right in and let that all kind of cook down and incorporate. You know, if you're cooking a soup that you're not going to blend, you know, I usually like to just kind of hand tear the basil, just to kind of get it a little bit smaller pieces, because I don't know, sometimes you don't want to take a spoonful of soup and have a big old bunch of basil right there. You want the flavors to be all over the place. So let that cook for a while.
Well, it's definitely a soup that you can serve hot, but tomato basil is a soup that you can serve cold too.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is absolutely wonderful in the summer, and it's a great fall soup, and of course in the winter. It's versatile, very versatile.
Absolutely. And you can even add different vegetable ingredients. You know, you could throw in jalapenos and make it spiciest, and especially if you're doing a cold, like a gazpacho type of thing. You know, you can add jalapenos and give it a little zing. You can add cucumbers and add a little bit of sweetness, and it's also has kind of a thinning property to the soup, so you're not getting as thick of a consistency.
Okay. So we've just got to wait for this to cook down.
Yeah.
So while we do that, let's have a quick word from one of our sponsors, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Let's talk kitchens. Let's talk dreams. Let's talk KitchenAid. Let's talk savings. Big savings. Get up to a $1,500 rebate when you purchase qualifying KitchenAid kitchen appliances and pay no interest when paid in full within 12 months. Let's talk selection. Let's talk service. Let's talk know-how. Shalot Electric Stores. Let's talk.
Well, that looks like it's just about ready.
Yeah, we've been cooking on this for a little while, and again, this is not a very time-consuming recipe, because really all you have to do is get stuff soft enough so that you can blend it up easily without beating up your blender or your food processor or whatever with those hard vegetables.
Gotcha.
But you know, the tomatoes have softened up, the onions and the garlic have really softened. You can see, especially with onions, and we use a red Bermuda onion, and they definitely kind of take on a very different color profile when they've been cooked down. So it's obvious when they're ready to go. But you can also see from the tomatoes, a lot of the juices are starting to sweat out, and you're going to see a lot more fluid kind of collect in the bottom of your pot as you're cooking those tomatoes down.
But you're going to add some more, right?
I sure am. And what I've got is the number 10 can of tomato fillets. Now again, this number 10 can it's a bunch. And you may not need to use this for your own home cooking if you're just cooking for your family.
Right.
But you know, they've got the smaller cans in the grocery store of peeled tomatoes, or you know, I know my mom always used just making like a tomato sauce. You know, there's tomato paste and tomato sauce, and then like canned tomatoes, and you can kind of use those to your own kind of preference to get that'll help contribute to the final kind of thickness of your soup as well. But yeah, I've got these guys, and we're just going to dump this whole can in here.
It's starting to smell so good, I'm ready to have a bowl.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We're just going to let that stir in and let those spices incorporate. And this is so nice and hot that it's going to maintain its heat. But now, I mean, you can see we've got a good full pot of soup pretty much ready to go right now.
Yep.
The only step that I would do is blend it down. Always remember to take your metal spoon out of the pot. I'm a big fan of this piece of equipment.
Oh yes, your immersion blender.
Yeah, the immersion blender. You can't beat it. It's so versatile. We use it for so many different things.
That's a big one.
Oh yeah, this is the big one. This is the heavy duty commercial version.
But you can actually do this in a food processor or a blender.
Yeah.
You don't have to have an immersion blender
to be
able to do that.
And now, and this one, I mean, this is a heavy duty model. I mean, this thing is big and heavy, and I mean, you need two hands to use it. Now they make, you know, non-commercial models of these that you can pick up at you can probably buy one in a grocery store or someplace like Sears or something, or online. And you know, they're smaller, they're lighter. Now they're not up to the heavier duty stuff. So if you're going to use one of those, I'd recommend, you know, letting this cook down for a good long bit, just to make sure that everything's nice and soft, so you're not overtaxing the motor in there.
Right.
But this guy, I mean,
well, let's put it in and see what happens.
We're going to rock it. All right, it's gonna get loud here for a second.
What it's actually doing is pureeing the whole mixture, so it makes a very creamy soup. Okay, wow, that looks great. The steam coming off and the smells are so good.
Oh yeah, well it's definitely, I mean, again, it's a simple recipe, nothing too fancy about it. But
it doesn't take a lot of time to cook, and it doesn't take a lot of time to prepare, which is great.
Oh no! I mean, this is something. This is one of my go-tos for us here at Chops, because we get here at 8 o'clock in the morning and we open at 11, and sometimes I have to make 3 or 4 soups for the morning, depending on what we've been going through and depending on how the weather is. But this is something that I can knock out in about half an hour, 45 minutes from start to finish. And be finished. And I mean, I've got 25 cups of soup right here ready to go, and this is ready to serve right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of that, let's get a little bowl and put a little bit in.
Yeah.
I need a little spoon, because I'm going to taste this.
There's that. I'm going to grab you a spoon. There you go.
All right, I'm ready. Oh, I can go home now. I'm happy.
Right on.
I'm happy. This is delicious. You really need to try this recipe. It is so fresh tasting. The basil, it comes out and it just enhances every tomato in there. So I'm going to take another bite. We'll be back in just a few minutes with our next dish. What is that, Brad?
We're gonna go over the making of our homemade cheese sauce and kind of put it together into a mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese, here we go. All right, be back in a few.
More is better. And when you build your own bundle with digital cable from AT&C, you get more of what you love. More of your favorite networks, more movies, more sports, and more control with DVR and video on demand. Plus, get more of your favorite TV shows wherever you are with AT&C to go. Build your own bundle with high-speed internet, digital cable, and reliable home phone from AT&C. You choose, you save with AT&C.
We're here with Brad at Chops Deli, and he is going to make his homemade mac and cheese. We've got everything ready, so it's your turn.
Well, mac and cheese is, again, I mean, we started out, we're talking about some really simple stuff, the tomato basil we put together, nothing really fancy to it, and this mac and cheese is the same. This is our kind of baseline mac and cheese, and one of the things I love about our mac and cheese is that from this point we're making our cheese sauce, we're going to add our elbow macaroni, but we can also add anything else we want almost. You pick your protein, you can do seafood, beef, chicken, pork. Any kind of veggies you want. I mean, we've done black beans and corn and spicy peppers, or I mean, it's really kind of can go anywhere. But this is the core that gets us to that point where we can kind of be as creative as we want with it and make it however we want and have some fun.
Well, that's one of the things that I love about certain dishes is that you can make it the way that you like it. Anything that you've got in the fridge that you think will make this an interesting dish, you can add it after you do it right the way it's supposed to be done.
Oh yeah.
So let's get started.
All right, so we're starting off. I've got a pound of butter, and I went ahead and cut it into little chunks. Just lay it down on the bottom of our pan. Now you may not have a nice little, the 6-inch half pan that any restaurant head is familiar with, but if you have a good deep casserole dish, that's gonna work out for you. One of the reasons I go ahead and cut up the butter, and we've got 3 pounds of cream cheese as well. Go ahead and pre-cut that up into smaller pieces because it cooks faster, and the heat gets to it more evenly, so that when you go to blend it into the actual sauce, your blender's not having to work overtime, and everything and make sure that when you pull it out of the oven, it's ready to go. Everything's gotten the heat, and you don't have to worry about big old chunks of cream cheese or butter that didn't get melted and didn't get incorporated into your sauce.
Yeah, because when this melts down, you're going to use the immersion blender.
I sure am. But again, like the tomato basil, you don't have to have an immersion blender. If you cook this guy long enough in the oven, you should be able to take a hand mixer, or if you have a tabletop mixer that you normally use for cakes or whatever, you know, you can take this stuff and pour it into a bowl, and you know, use that.
Right.
It's really simple. Again, I think the most important part of it is making sure that that it's cooked long enough, and making sure that everything's nice and melty, so that you're not having to deal with super big chunks of say,
because you've got to incorporate cheese. All those flavors together.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we've got our butter, and then we've got a layer of butter on the bottom. We've got our layer of cream cheese. And we got like 4 pounds of shredded cheddar jack. This is one of the core things of ours. Now, this is a point where I definitely recommend the butter. I definitely recommend the cream cheese. You know, those are two of the kind of binding agents that help kind of keep the creaminess of the cheese sauce. But as far as what cheese you're adding on top of it after that, you know, this is one of those places where you can get creative. This stuff is easily purchasable, but from our grocery vendors, and so we can get it in big boxes and big bags. So,
right.
But if you're paring down the portions and say using 1 pound of cream cheese and 1/3 pound of butter, you could buy some kind of fun blend, or you could do you know, Italian style with just mozzarella or mozzarella and Parmesan, or
Havarti.
Yeah, totally.
You could put anything in there and mix it together too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So don't be afraid to experiment with different types of cheeses. You know, we've used blue cheese sparingly, because that's a really potent flavor.
Right.
But you know, and you know, you could go to the specialty cheese section and spend a little bit of money and get some really fancy, really tasty cheeses that would make just a killer mac and cheese just by itself. Or and then you still have the opportunity to add stuff to it, add proteins, add vegetables.
Right.
So it's really. I love this stuff. It's great. So many possibilities. The finish for our cheese sauce is really just going to be, we're going to throw a bunch of milk in there. You can also use some heavy cream. I usually like using a bunch of milk.
Just whole milk.
Just whole milk. It's easy to come by, and I mean, I'm going to use basically a whole gallon in this batch. But really, what I'm doing is making sure that I'm going to pour milk in there until I can see it coming up through the cheese. That's kind of the proportion, if you will. And from here, we're ready to go into the oven. I'm going to cook this for about an hour at 300.
Okay.
So nothing too difficult. Again, you know, you want
uncovered.
I cover it in foil.
Cover it. Okay.
Yeah. Make sure and kind of lock all that heat in there. That's going to help it cook more completely, and also prevent. We don't want it to get like burned out or anything. Now, like, you know, about an hour at 300 is going to get everything melted, get everything kind of loose enough to be blended or mixed or whatever, but it's not going to get to the point where you're starting to burn your cheese and you're starting to burn stuff off. It's not burning off all the moisture because
it's contained.
Yeah,
okay.
I've left them in there too long before, and cleaning that pan is difficult. A trial.
All right, let's get that into the oven.
All righty, we're going to wrap it up, and
I'm going to go put this in the oven, and we will be right back.
Let's talk kitchens. Let's talk dreams. Let's talk KitchenAid. Let's talk savings. Big savings. Get up to a $1,500 rebate when you purchase qualifying KitchenAid kitchen appliances and pay no interest when paid in full within 12 months. Let's talk selection. Let's talk service. Let's talk know-how. Shalot Electric Stores. Let's talk.
Welcome back. I'm getting ready to take a bite of this terrific mac and cheese. Remember, everybody, this fellow over here has got a great shop. Come try the sides, the salad, the soup at Chops Deli. See Brad. He'll take good care of you. Okay, it's my turn. And remember, you never know where the Coastal Kitchen will be next. Great.
We are ATMC TV, Channel 3 and HD Channel 910, your community channel.